Saturday morning, super late. It's like 10 o'clock. I know, a lot of homesteaders are up at like 6 a.m. I've never been a morning person, and I'm also a midwife, birth worker for 10 years, but on call. I don't have the best get up in the early morning, but I had a birth last night. It's been raining here in Texas after a drought, which is great. We've needed it really bad. And all the animals are yelling at me. They're like, please come and help me. So rain, if you don't know this, often sudden storms bring babies. And so because we haven't had much rain, I was like, the drop in the barometric pressure is definitely going to bring some babies. And I only take like 1 to 2 clients a month. And sure enough, we had 2 storms and both brought babies. I feel like every term baby last night and DFW was coming. So anyways, late start to our morning because I needed to sleep. And usually Saturdays are a little bit slow for us anyway. So check on everybody. These guys are doing, look at this tillage situation. Oh, you guys, A, are having the time of your life, and B, oh my goodness, look how great you're doing. This is gonna be my new garden space. It's about 32 by 32 over here. We're basically extending this garden. I've got a couple raised beds here, and then we've got this one that's just in the ground, which I found I loved, and so that's why we decided to do it this way. I think raised beds can be great for several reasons. That's how I first started gardening. That's what my mother-in-law taught me. But kind of on a whim, we decided, hey, let's just, you know, start this in the ground one at the beginning of spring. So this is my second garden growing in here. And wow, the difference the soil made even from one to the next. We tarped it for a little bit. So I've got one lowly watermelon hanging out over there. I think I need to get out here and harvest some things. It looks like, look at that, my radishes are peeking through. Look, my little lettuces are coming up. Cool. I need to get out here and harvest. I'm hoping these tomatoes will start to ripen up before we get a frost. Rosie! Are you enjoying the weather? Okay, everybody. I know. Hello, turkeys. Hello. I'm coming. I just went to check on everybody, and all of a sudden I realized there's no chickens out, which was a super eerie feeling. And then I thought, oh no, they are stuck. And yesterday it poured rain all day, so I didn't see them out, and I just assumed it's because they didn't want to be in the rain, and it was such a crazy busy day. I didn't really think about it. I don't know how long they've been stuck in there. I counted, I'm missing 2 that have not come out yet. I'm going to give them a few minutes to come out of the coop. There were 2 in there that I kind of tried to scoot out that I saw their legs, so we'll count. I hope everyone's okay. It means they've probably been stuck in there for a little bit. Because it was raining yesterday, we put our buck, one of our bucks, in with the girls actually, and even though he's 10 months old, anytime that he's with them, he will usually nurse. And so I don't know, since he was with them this morning, I don't know if he will have nursed on them already. We'll see. She feels pretty full, so maybe we'll get some. So today I wanted to talk about my job as a midwife. I definitely have people ask a lot, how do we handle homesteading with my job? I mean, I think that that's a common question. How do you handle homesteading if you still have a job? Both of us do work. We do work away from the home. As a midwife, though, I am generally home 5 days of the week. So that helps a whole lot. You know, this week was a little crazy, so it just depends on what babies do. I intentionally only take 1 to 2 clients a month. That does help me to get everything done and often not feel too overwhelmed. It does get overwhelming. I'm going to share what happened yesterday, so it can get overwhelming. But storm spring babies, like I mentioned before, and so I did have 2 mamas go this week, which makes for a little bit of a crazy week. Because not only are you at the birth, you also go and do a 2-day visit. You're also on call during that time. So when they start to feel contractions and they feel labor's coming on, you start gearing up to go. And sometimes that can be all day. That's what happened Monday, actually, is that I thought for sure, like, oh, she's going to be having this baby today. She actually didn't end up needing me. Like, it started at 6:30 in the morning, and she didn't end up needing me until about 10 o'clock that night. And then I was up all night, and so then, of course, I've got to catch up on sleep the next day. So that does make things a little bit tricky. It's definitely a unique job to manage and deal with. I'm going to get the next goat. No, Penny, you already had some green. Hey, no, go. Go. Oh, you're eating hay. I've got the camera sitting on the hay in our barn, so she's over here eating. Yep, the buckling nursed on her, so she's not going to have much milk. And she is our cash cow over here, so that's a bummer. I need to separate him today. So anyways, how does it work? We all have really defined like roles in terms of who's in charge of what. Our kids help. My 14-year-old helps a lot, actually. So he has specific chores. And just so you're aware of like how long it takes us, it takes the kids about 15 minutes to do their chores in the morning and the evening. And then it takes me, if nothing weird happens, 15 to 20 minutes. I can get it done in 15 minutes. Like on the days that I go to clinic, I get it done in 15 minutes. I enjoy spending about 30 minutes doing everything. I like to go check on my garden. I like to give a once over on everybody, even though I know my husband already did it a couple hours before. So I enjoy doing it in a 30-minute time span, but I can get it done. It's the evening chores seem to be less long. I don't really know why that is, but they just are. And so those, you know, even enjoying it, I can take 20 minutes and do them. So we all have defined roles. For instance, I'm in charge of the goats, and my husband's in charge of the meat birds. My son is in charge of the pigs, my older son, and then my middle son is in charge of the chickens. I also pay attention to the turkeys quite a bit as well, even though technically that falls under kind of chicken territory. They like to do their own thing. If we have pullets or chicks, then my middle son also is in charge of changing their water and feeding them. The bees, you know, you only have to handle the bees every couple weeks, once a month. So we usually plan that in advance on like what we're going to do, who's going to do it. We do it on a weekend. My husband usually handles the actual like hive situation, and then I help him with whatever's going on back and forth, whatever we're managing. The garden is mostly me, but my husband will help me if we plan in advance of like, hey, we're going to do this on Saturday. We're going to do this big thing with the garden. So really, it's not what people think. I feel like a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, how do you have 2 hours in the morning and the evening to do it? It's not. Really only takes about a total of an hour of my day, all in all. But that being said, it is hard work, and it is a little different, you know, in the mornings when you're planning to go do something. Like for us with church, my husband leads worship at our church, so he is gone pretty early in the morning, and so is our oldest son because he plays. And so it's me and the middle one with the baby. And so that does make it a little more challenging. Like I'm not every other mom trying to get to church. I'm doing it on my own, first of all, which I've been doing for a decade, you know, getting kids dressed into church on my own. But also I've got animals to take care of. And for me, I'm like, oh, I still want to do my hair, my makeup and things. And so it's taking into account that, like with weather, you know, me getting out here before I'm going to do my hair and makeup. So all of those things you have to consider. Last night was interesting. My husband had a big gig in Dallas. It was raining like crazy. My older son was going to a friend's house, and I was supposed to go to the gig kind of as a date night, and then my client was in labor. And so I did milk the goat. I did have time to milk the goats in a hurry right before we left. It did work out, knowing like, hey, she's probably not going to have a lot of milk because the buck was in with her, which was true. So that made things go faster, you know. But that sometimes can get tricky, you know, if we're all gone, and making sure that we get everybody taken care of and put up, you know. So it does take a little bit of planning, and that's where we just say it's progress over perfection. It's not perfect. It's not ideal for people, but this is our lifestyle. Unfortunately, I have an on-call job. My husband is a musician. You know, it's just unique. And so because it's unique, we tailor it for us. And so when I talk to people that are interested in just getting even backyard chickens and they start to stress and worry about, I really try to drive home like the progress over perfection. You do need a plan. Like, you need to take care of them well. But at the same time, flexibility is your friend. And for me, I have to be flexible with my job. I mean, I've had to learn to be flexible for a decade. And with that, the way that I'm able to stay flexible is having certain things very planned out. You know, if I know exactly where things are organized, things are very planned in one area, then it allows me to be more flexible in other areas. We do plan things like several weeks in advance. You know, we're not people that are great at like, hey, can you come to dinner tomorrow night? You know, or when we're at church, people will ask us to do things that night. We typically had to have planned that in pretty far advance, because so much has to be flexible for us. The things that can be planned, we do. But we also enjoy, at this season of our life, being home, staying home, working on our homestead, working on our farm. When we moved here last year, we started having to get infrastructure put into place, and we're also in a home that needs to be redone, and so we're redoing things one room at a time. And that disorganization for me was super challenging, because with the lifestyle of a midwife, I have always really needed things to be organized, so that when I have to drop everything and go, I didn't feel like my home was in shambles and I'm asking people to take care of my kids in a home that's a mess. Like, that stresses me out. So it has been definitely more challenging in the last year as we're trying to get things organized, which things still are not organized like I would like. But those are some of the ways that we handle it and we do it. But bottom line is, you just want to make it work for you, and that's okay. Like, these groups drive me crazy sometimes. People are just so, trying to think of a nice way to say this. People just have really high expectations, not only for themselves, but also for others. And sometimes it makes others who are new at this feel like they can't do it. My personality is very much like, oh, tell me you can't do something, let me show you that I can. So it's a little bit of a challenge for me. I'm a very big rule follower, but I also like a big challenge of like, oh, really? You think I can't accomplish that? Well, let me show you. Which sometimes lends itself to me going after things I don't really need to accomplish. That's okay. I've learned from that now sometimes it's just like, let me just put that over there. I don't need to prove that I can do that, you know, or even prove that I'm the best at that, whatever that may be. But I think you just have to figure out what works for you, figuring out your goals. Like, what are your goals? What makes you feel accomplished? Ooh, I'm a little close there. What makes you feel accomplished? I'm like, are you fertile? Well, that's good. The buck's been with you. She's wagging her tail. That's a sign. It's really hard for me to tell whenever they can be bred, actually. The other one, our Nubian, I actually could tell. So I hope she's bred. I'm going to borrow an ultrasound machine from a midwife friend and see next week. So hopefully she's bred. This one, I'm not sure. We saw them mate, but she wasn't showing any signs. So I don't know. We'll see. We're new at this, but see, there you go. Progress over perfection. You don't have to know. You don't have to know. Yes, the more you learn, you will save yourself time and energy and money, but you don't have to know. I think part of that too comes from me as a midwife. Like, I do feel like I have to know well my job, right? Because it's life, death, it's safety. And so because of that, I'm like, this is just not that big of a deal. Like, it's just not that big of a deal. So it's easy to sit here this morning when I'm not on call and say that, because I'm off call for a few weeks now. Yesterday I was super stressed out. We had our huge feed order that was going to be delivered yesterday, and they give you like a window of 8 hours. It's like $1,500 worth of feed. It's kind of a cooperative. We go in with other people. And so that was going to be delivered. It was storming rain all day, which is not ideal for a feed delivery. And I have this mom who is contracting, and it was not her first baby, so I knew when things kicked in it was going to go fast. And so I'm trying to logistically think through plan A, plan B, plan C, take care of the animals, homeschool the kids, be checking on my client, manage the feed. Luckily they gave me a shorter window later. It was between 3 and 5. And we got a little break in the rain between 3 and 5. So that worked out perfect. We were able to unload everything, and then my client didn't need me till about 6 p.m. So really everything worked out. In my midwife brain, I'm like, worst case scenario. All the things are going to happen all at once, and she's going to go fast, and I'm not going to be able to get there. And the feed's going to be in the rain, and the goats aren't going to get milked, you know. So all those things can take over, and there were moments where that did, but it was like, okay, no. Come up with plan A, a plan B, and then one step at a time. And so when things are that stressful and, you know, lots is going on, it is a little easier in the other situations to step back and be like, well, this isn't that. We can handle it, we can manage it, and we can get to it. So this is my talk on progress over perfection, and I hope it inspires somebody to step out and do something that they have a vision for, or they dream about. This is a big dream of ours and a big vision. And so I think write out those wishes, those dreams, those plans, and see which things that you can start to tackle first, and just step out and do it. Find a mentor for each little area, like a little goat mentor, cow mentor, if you're gonna do cows, chickens, whatever that is. Find a friend and just get going. You can learn so much on YouTube. You can learn so much by researching and books. So this is an area where we have gone back to our roots. My husband grew up having lots of animals and goats. I grew up on land. My granny did. I've talked about that before. She grew up in the Great Depression. So these are very much our roots. And so I encourage you to find your roots, find somebody with roots that has a little bit of a knowledge, and just go out and pursue your dreams.